We'll move straight on to item 1 on the agenda, which is the minutes of the previous minute. Could somebody conform as a true record the decision of that meeting?
Seconded.
Right, that's proposed by Councillor Fuller, seconded by Councillor Ian Stevens. All those in favour? Yep, okay, thank you. I'll just sign the minutes. We move on to item 2 on the agenda, which is declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest? Councillor Phil Jordan.
Chair, yeah, I do have an interest in Wightcare, and I'll leave the chamber for that item. I have a peculiar interest. I don't have a direct interest in Wightcare, just to be very clear, but our business is in the care sector, so I'll leave the chamber.
Okay, thank you very much.
Do you want me to mention? Very much indeed, monitoring officer. That's very kind of you. I have a partner who is a PA and works in the care sector, and I think I should leave at the same time as Councillor Jordan.
Okay, so we move on to item 3 on the agenda, which is public question time. There are no public, so there are no public questions. Thank you. Move on to item 4 on the agenda, which is chairman's announcements. I'm not making any announcements. Move on to item number 5, report of the Cabinet Member for Strategic Finance, Transformational Change and Corporate Services. Councillor Chris Jarman, 5A, please.
Thank you, Chair. So this is the regular performance review that we do every quarter. We go through each of the individual portfolios and breakdown of the performance of the council, showing historical references as well. The paper has been reviewed already by the groups. Oh, sorry. And I'm very happy to take any questions on the paper.
Are there any questions for the paper? None. So could you please move to the recommendation? Thank you.
The recommendation is that the Cabinet approves the performance and finance report for the quarter ended the 30th of September 2022 and the priority report detailed out in the appendices 1 to 10, together with the Council's financial position set out at 11 to 12.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for that motion? Thank you, Councillor Bacon. All those in favour? Thank you very much. Great. Okay, move on to item 5B, which is the local council tax support scheme. That's you again, Councillor Jarman, please.
Yes, so I'll refer members to page 83 on the agenda this evening. This follows the annual cycle with the local council tax support scheme and gives details of the consultation exercise that we went through and the results thereof. There were a number of options available to us at this time, and members will have regard to a couple of important matters. One is the discussion of this at 1 year ago when we halted the decline that was currently underway in terms of the relief provided to island residents. We were very pleased to bring a halt to that process and indicated that where possible we would seek to increase that in the future. I'm happy to take any questions that people may have on the paper or indeed the results attached to it.
Are there any questions? None. Okay, thank you. Could you move to the recommendation, please?
Yeah, so the recommendation is that we adopt option 1 to record the preference to increase the maximum level of support for working age cases to 70% from the current maximum of 65%, subject to it being affordable to the council and therefore considered alongside and part of the council's overall budget for 23-24, together with option 4 to add a local welfare payment disregard to the Mirror Housing Benefit regulations, and together with option 5 to disregard any increase in welfare benefit payments due to crisis or emergency provision. And I look for a seconder for that.
Thank you, Councillor Jordan. Seconded. All those in favour of that, please show. Thank you very much. Move on to the next item, which is item number 6A, which is the Wightcare options. This is Councillor Carl Love, if you would like to
Thank you, Chair. So this is the paper which was discussed just two days ago at scrutiny, and it's the Cabinet which paper brought forward for discussion tonight, with an extreme amount of work going into this from my two officers sat behind me, Laura Guardian and of course Ian Lloyd. This is a paper which we discussed earlier this year, and we're bringing this forward for ratification tonight. The finances involved with this paper are approximately in the region of 1.572 million. We recognise that there have been some shortfalls, and this council seeks to address that shortfall and has been subsidising the service to the tune of £549,603 to the pound. As we move forward, we need to recognise that we are attempting to bring this down to net cost to the council over a 2-year period. The paper has been discussed by just about everybody involved, including our 151 officer, who has confirmed his support for progressing this paper. Of course, we would all have to say that there are some caveats in there at the moment because of the events unfolding in government. So subject to funding, future funding, it would be our next year, our intention to carry out this programme exactly as is laid out in the paper. It's an important service because it provides support to approximately 2,100 people. It provides a range of services. It allows people to live independently in their own homes. And of course, many of the onward impacts actually help to reduce the pressures on our colleagues in the NHS sector, the hospital particularly, by keeping people out of hospital, by having the services which we provide, including reablement. We make a significant contribution to reducing the cost in healthcare and allowing people to live the lives that they want to live independently at home in their own homes, which I think we would all seek to achieve in later life. So we are going for option 1. So I actually need to make sure that I've got the...
Is it the recommendation on 267?
The recommendation, yes, is to retain the Wightcare service in-house and develop 2-year cost recovery models from April 2023 to achieve a financial break-even, reducing dependency on the public funds and stabilising the service for future under statutory charging. I said that wrong, haven't I? This recommendation is supported by the independent review of the service. This recommendation is supported by an independent review of the service by the industry body, the TSA. So that is the recommendation. I'm happy.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Andre? Questions for that? No? Okay, if we can move to the vote, please. All those in favour of that recommendation, please show. Thank you. That's carried. Thank you. If we could bring the other 2 members back in, please.
Thank you. Can I just say thank you to the officers and everybody involved with the production of this paper, because it's often behind the officers are a lot of people who do a lot of work, and I think that that's really important to say thank you to them. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Love. So we move on to item 7A, which is the report for the Cabinet Member for Planning Enforcement. That's you, Councillor Paul Fuller.
Thank you, Chairman. Before us, we have the paper for the SBDs for Newport and Ryde high streets. It is a policy to support and enhance high street frontages in our island's key retail areas. There's been quite a lot of consultation on this, and it gives me quite a lot of pleasure to actually have this report that I hope will be adopted by Cabinet this evening. There's, as I said, there has been quite a lot of, I think the high street is suffering at the moment, and I think the next few months is going to be crucial for a lot of high streets up and down the country, and anything we can do to support that, and this policy does very much support enhancement of the high streets, I think we should be doing, and we will be doing. So so I am very happy to commend the recommendations, which are recommendation 4, the Newport and Ryde Commercial Frontages Design Guide be adopted as supplementary planning document, and that any final editorial and presentational changes to the draft supplementary planning document are delegated to the Director of Regeneration in consultation with the Cabinet Member for Planning and Enforcement. These changes will not alter the meaning of the document and will be restricted to grammatical and typographical errors. So I move this this report. Thank you.
Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Jonathan Bacon, thank you. Is there anyone wishing to speak to that? Okay.
Just a comment, Chair, just to amongst ourselves, to realise that this has come out of quite substantial grant funding from Historic England that created the 2 houses in Newport and Ryde, and very welcome investment, and our Regen department that helps support not only the application but commitment from the Isle of Wight Council. But this is part of that grant funding, and it's worth recognising the achievements that we've made as a council and Historic England in bringing Historic England to this island and investing in it. So it's a great piece of work for all concerned.
Councillor Ian Stevens.
Thank you, Chair. It's right that we take this forward. When we work with other stakeholders and we do get grant funding, if we start to turn away from these elements and say no, then unfortunately the next round of grant funding, we won't be at the top of the list. With the proof that we've actually taken things forward, we will be somewhere down the middle to lower part of the list. So it's imperative that we take this forward. And I'm just pleased to see that, you know, the recommendation is such. I also note that there is no financial implications within this paper. So thank you.
Okay. Councillor Jordan.
Thank you, Chair. I should have added, because it was Regen that brought this forward originally, and we were successful. But to say that Paul and the planning department have worked very hard to get the document through so that we can utilise that across this island for shop fronts in our town centre. So they deserve credit for it as well. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. On that point from Councillor Jordan, I'd also like to thank Ryde Town Council and Newport and Carisbrooke Community Council for a lot of the work that they've been doing to support this. I think this is good partnership working with all concerned. So my gratitude goes out to members of Newport and Ryde councils. Thank you.
Okay, so all those in favour of that recommendation read out? Thank you. That's carried. Thank you. Well done. We move on to item on the new agenda. It is item number 8A, which is the two, because it's different on my bit here. Okay, so it's the, can I read it from yours? Thank you, sorry. Report of the Cabinet Member for Levelling Up Regeneration, which actually Councillor Jones-Evans is travelling back from abroad. So it will be Chris Jarman is going to be doing it, and it's to dispose of the council-owned employment land at Kingston Marine Park, East Cowes. Thank you very much. Councillor Jarman.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, as you say, I'm dealing with this on behalf of Councillor Julie Jones-Evans, who I believe is somewhere on the Eurostar at the moment. Difficult for her to be here this evening. The issue is for the proposal for the freehold disposal of Kingston Marine Park. You'll be aware that this has been a site marketed for about 10 years now, and the purpose of the disposal is to provide a very large number, circa 1,000 jobs in the creative industries. There are commercial clauses associated with this, and for that reason, some of the papers have been offset to a confidential appendix. The upshot of the deal, though, is that we are proposing to go ahead with the freehold disposal of this, but with the option to acquire back 2.5 acres of that, which is undevelopable land, with the idea that that will provide a facility for battery storage in the future. There are some questions that came up from this at corporate scrutiny a couple of days ago, and for those I want to hand over to Chris Ashman, who will be able to address those issues, albeit that they were raised just 2 days ago.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Jarman. Yeah, obviously there was a very helpful conversation at the scrutiny on Tuesday evening, and it's great to have the opportunity just to clarify those points. The first point was around the full market price for the site, and obviously we are under legislative requirements, and our Section 151 officer is under the same to ensure that we get best consideration for any disposals we progress. And I can confirm that the full market price is being achieved with this proposal, and that's set out in confidential Appendix 2 and 3, which is an independent market report on the value of the site. The second point was around the provision should be made to ensure that the land is not sold on once disposed for an alternative purpose. And I can confirm that heads of terms, the draft heads of terms, subject to cabinet decision, do reflect that the purchaser won't be able to undertake that. Sufficient parks. Third point is sufficient parking to be provided on the site or a shuttle service supplied to enable its proposed full use and to lessen the impact on surrounding residential areas. And I know obviously cabinet are very concerned about the impact of those developments, and particularly in displacement parking, for example. So just in response to that, discussion with the developer have confirmed they'll be preparing and submitting a sustainable travel plan as part of their planning application. And obviously those matters in terms of parking and access will be determined as part of the planning process. Fourth point is assurance that the possibility of use of the site for marine industry use with river access has been fully explored and discounted due to the constraints with the site and the river. And I can confirm that in the Cabinet confidential report that is addressed. I think without going on too long into that issue, there's been substantive research undertaken. The site was originally purchased for that purpose, but it was identified subsequently that the environmental regulations and European-wide environmental regulations have limited the opportunity for that and discounted it altogether. The potential marine uses in the Medina Valley requirements of production of boats of up to 30 tonnes, and that will require significant civil engineering impacts on the riverbeds and riverside, that site. And our colleagues in the Environment Agency and Natural England in particular have highlighted that is not possible under the habitat regulations directives. So for cost reasons and also for practical delivery reasons, the marine use permission isn't deliverable. And obviously we've done extensive investigations into all kinds of options to enable us to overcome that route without success. Fifth point is creation of jobs proposed by the purchaser is deemed realistic. And what I've circulated in relation to these points is also further information from the developer regarding the proposed breakdown. And I can give Cabinet further information around that prior to their decision. They're estimating 236 construction jobs for this project, a further 279 employed on a temporary basis, and then 29 permanent staff based on the site. There are also an estimated economic impact of this project in the broader economy in terms of supply chain and purchasing of up to 1,000 jobs, depending upon the scale of the activity that's going on at the site. Number 6 is around any possible use of the site by the council to build social housing being fully considered. The site's allocated for employment use, both in the core strategy and the future island plan, and obviously in terms of the future development of East Cowes as a whole. So it's been designated as such, And obviously, in some planning terms, any housing component would require a change in policy. That being said, the remaining land that the developer is not being proposed to use, approximately about a third of the site, is unfortunately not developable for any purpose, never mind housing, due to its condition and its topography. So in that context, the site unfortunately is not deemed possible and developable for housing purposes. So that therefore we've considered that and obviously responded accordingly to the scrutiny committee's comments. Those were all the points that were raised by the scrutiny committee chair and hopefully addressed to cabinet satisfaction.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments? Councillor Love.
Thank you, Chair. Just to reiterate that I was involved when this site was purchased previously by the previous administration. What I found absolutely quite amazing from the conversations which have taken place is that no due diligence was paid in the first place, to the fact that that all of the contents of what has just been discussed in terms of the river use itself being too shallow, etc., were never investigated, and that the blame for that clearly lies with the Homes England and it was Homes and Communities at the time, who promised our shipbuilders a place to be able to go. That pressure still remains on the shipbuilding industry, which is expanding into these wonderful electronic engines, and there's a big future for East Cowes and Cowes collectively if we get that right moving forward. This element, quite rightly stated, of the Kingston Marine Park is the area dedicated for industrial use. It specifically said marine industry. And of course, the wider picture is that the housing element was delivered. I believe it's about 1,500 houses that was built on the the Hawthorne Meadows site. So this site was always intended to be developed. I welcome the jobs and particularly jobs which take a variety of industries into account as we move forward, whatever those may well be. I think it's important for me to say something as the ward councillor adjoining the Osborne ward, because there will be impacts for residents in the area. And just to reiterate that, in actual fact, the developers of the estates always knew that there was going to be a significant build for industry in that area, and there will be no doubt further development as the power station and the adjoining lands around that are also dedicated to further developing. And then, of course, we have another site which has recently become free, which is the old oil refinery delivery place, where there will be further development. And I would hope that that might make a wonderful site for shipbuilding in the future. I mean, so we've not lost that ability, and that is deep water in that area. So thank you for hearing my comments there. It's just important from a local perspective.
Thank you, and I can confirm that the local member I spoke to Councillor Julie Jones-Evans today and is in full agreement with the proposal. So did you read the recommendation? Sorry, Councillor Jarman, the recommendation on the new white bit of paper, I think.
Oh, yeah. I thank Chris Ashman for his answers and also Councillor Lev for his elucidation there. So the recommendation option 1 is to approve the freehold sale of Kingston Marine Park to a third party as detailed in the confidential appendices 1, 2 and 3, subject to contract and achieving detailed planning consent, to delegate the authority to approve final terms following this decision to both the Cabinet Member for Levelling Up, Regeneration, Business Development and Tourism and the Cabinet Member for Strategic Finance, Transformational Change and Corporate Resources in consultation with the Director of Regeneration and the Council's Section 151 officer. And I look for a seconder.
Councillor Bacon is seconding that motion. We have got one question, so I will ask Councillor Spink to come in. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. My comment and question doesn't go to the merit, as it were, of this recommendation. It sounds to me, on the little that I know about it, because it's nuts and bolts of it has been restricted. But it sounds to me, on the little that I know about it, that it looks like a jolly good scheme. My concern is that a decision has been taken, as I understand it. Initially, this hearing was to be, the public would be excluded. That was on the original agenda. And then that agenda was changed so that public weren't to be excluded, but that the information with regard to purchase price, contract details, and the purchaser is not to be in the public realm, nor is it to be disclosed, for example, to corporate scrutiny, nor is it to be disclosed to councillors. And in my submission, that's a departure from the norm, and that there is a public interest point in open and transparent local government. Now, my understanding, and no doubt the monitoring officer could advise, my understanding is that if this cabinet is going to restrict the details on the basis that it's, as I understand it, exempt information. Exempt information, there's nothing wrong in it being disclosed. It's a matter of discretion for the cabinet. And the cabinet has to weigh up whether or not the public interest and the public need to know in open and transparent means, whether or not that is outweighed by the confidential, in inverted commas, information of A, the identity of the developer, and B, the purchase price and other contractual arrangements, all of which will become in the public realm, no doubt, when it goes through and is registered with the land registry. So my question is, has Cabinet properly considered the exclusion of these details, and has the law been properly applied? There is a strong public interest in knowing what the council is proposing. For example, by way of example, just look at the upset that there was, and which continues, by the secrecy over the settlement in relation to the floating bridge. And there is a continuing trend, if I may say so, which is causing me concern of this administration, although it says it's open and transparent, a continuing concern in my submission that matters are being kept from the public when actually there's not a good justification for doing so. So that is my submission, and I would ask, please, if Cabinet has been asked to vote on it, to take a decision, and if not, whether Cabinet wishes to be consulted on whether or not it is proper for these matters to be exempt from public knowledge.
Councillor Bacon, and then I'm going to bring in Councillor Potter.
Yeah.
Chris Potter.
Swap, if you like. Thank you, Leader. I listened very carefully to what was being said there in, as you referred to it, Councillor Spink's submission. There was a question there to which shortly the answer is yes. This has been properly considered and is legal. I agree, I think, with everything Councillor Spink said in his preamble to the question, but this is a matter where there is confidential commerciality, and we have to act legally, as we have done, are doing, I should say, in respect of that, and that weighing up process that was referred to in the question has taken place. Indeed, I think what we should note here is, yes, there's a public interest in being as open as one can, which is why we are discussing as much as we can in public, because you will note the original version of the agenda that was before this committee, and this matter was put to the end, and there to be a request to pass the resolution to exclude public and press. What has been done here is to bring as much forward publicly as possible, and that has allowed, unfortunately, Councillor Jones-Evans wasn't able to be here, but Chris Ashman has stepped into the position there to answer those questions of scrutiny, which are fine and proper questions, and I hope they give the reassurance and confidence in this decision, and what is going to be a very positive thing for the island, I think. So the short answer, I think, to I know Mr. Potter may wish to add some technical points, but the short answer is yes. But we've done our best to be as open as possible, but commercial confidentiality has to be taken into account, and that weighing up process has been carefully considered, and we've done what we can.
Mr. Potter in first, then Councillor Love.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, the short answer is certainly yes. In relation to reassuring everybody, including members of the public, Parliament has laid down a clear good governance path whereby there are rights where it's in the wider public interest at a point in time for matters of commercial nature to be exempt information. But the safeguard to give reassurance to all councillors and members of the public is that there is a scrutiny function which enables a scrutiny committee at the relevant period of time to gain access to the exempt information on a confidential basis in order to satisfy themselves that things have been done in the manner which they would recommend it's done. And also the final safeguard is clearly the council is audited externally as well. So there's clear statutory rights for members of the relevant Overviews and Scrutiny Committee at the relevant time to seek information on a confidential basis, and I am satisfied that those arrangements are in place and do apply to this local authority and indeed other local authorities up and down England. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Love.
Thank you. I think it was a worthwhile question asking. Certainly from my perspective is that this is a slightly different proposition to other propositions in that we're not saying not ever, we're just saying at this time, in order to progress the the developer's wishes, that no revealing of that deal is expected or wished upon, which could put the deal itself in risk. But for me, I feel reassured that this information, as was with the floating bridge, the previous floating bridge, is that once it had been commissioned, once it had been built, all of that information then became public to the public. And that was what happened with the building of Floating Bridge 6. It all became public afterwards. And because of commercial interest before that, because there were competitors, it couldn't be revealed. And this, in my opinion, is exactly the same. It will be revealed at some point once the agreements have been made, I believe.
Thank you, Councillor Love. I've taken over from the leader. She's left to another engagement, so you've got me for the rest of the meeting. Councillor Spink, you want to come back?
Thank you, Chair. Just 2 points. I don't want to labour this, but I do think it's an important public policy matter. The first point, with the advice of our monitoring officer, Mr. Potter, my concern is this, that scrutiny was not given the opportunity to be privy to the confidential information. So with the greatest respect, your comment that scrutiny has looked at the detail is not the case. The scrutiny papers originally did not contain a report because it was going to be no public access. I then wrote 2 emails to Democratic Services saying, how can scrutiny scrutinize if we've not got a report? What then occurred was that an edited report with all the confidential matters that are in the confidential appendices were not provided to corporate scrutiny. We were not informed at corporate scrutiny of our right, if there is such a right, which you've just said there is. We were not informed of our right to see those papers, and that is why corporate scrutiny was reduced to simply asking the questions that have been answered by Mr. Ashman. So I am concerned that with respect, your statement that corporate scrutiny has been able to scrutinize, that is not the case, because we were not privy to the confidential documents. Secondly, does this decision not have to be taken to exclude information as in the interest of confidentiality? Is that not a decision that has to be taken by Cabinet? And my understanding is there has not been a Cabinet decision. I may be wrong. So my question is, has a Cabinet decision been taken to exclude this information? And is that necessary as a matter of law? And secondly, does the fact that corporate scrutiny were not allowed to see the papers affect the monitoring officer's advice?
Thank you. I'm going to bring in Councillor Debbie Andre. Moment.
Thank you, Chair. If it might help for clarity, I was in the same position as Councillor Spink in the previous administration when I sat on corporate scrutiny. And it was my understanding that there is a different level of confidentiality for Cabinet as there is for corporate scrutiny. So perhaps the monitoring officer would like to give clarification on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Potter.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, a point of clarification. I certainly haven't said that sort of the information has been currently provided to corporate scrutiny in terms of the confidential information. What I'm endeavouring to explain is that there was a point in time when corporate scrutiny are entitled by law to receive confidential information. In terms of Regulation 17 of the 2012 regulations, that bites effectively after the relevant decision has been made by the Cabinet or Cabinet member or members and so forth. Because obviously the whole purpose of having the legislation to enable discretion to be exercised to protect exempt information is precisely because at that point in time, I think Councillor Love's made clear, there is a point in time when it is in the greater public interest for that information not to be revealed, but then subsequently, after the decision has been made, then if it's on the corporate scrutiny's work programme or matter which they're actually scrutinising, then they can actually request sight of the confidential information and then full scrutiny in confidence can take place at that point in time. So, you know, as I say, there is reassurance that information will be made available at the material time to those entrusted by Parliament, i.e. those serving effectively on our corporate scrutiny committee, to have access to that information at that point in time. But yes, Councillor Spink, you're absolutely right. You haven't currently got the information. You know, I'm happy to clarify that you currently have not got access to all that confidential information at the present time.
Thank you. Point that I raised was.
Have you got a microphone on there?
Yeah. The second point, Mr. Potter, that I raised was that does the decision of confidentiality, who takes that decision, who has taken that decision, and does it not have to be a decision of the cabinet as a whole.
Can we not have the asides? Let's deal with things through microphones. We've got people online. Mr. Potter.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you for the clarification of the second point, Councillor Spink. There's two aspects here. This particular item, as has been explained, is being dealt with in public session as far as it can do. There's more point. In terms of the confidential papers, they are duly marked up, not for publication, and the power to mark it up and to regard it as confidential is actually again listed in the same regulations and giving reasons why it's confidential at the present time. Because we're holding a meeting at the moment, then obviously, as with the equivalent for council meetings or committee meetings, should at a point in time it be thought that the council or cabinet should be in private session, then yes, there would be a resolution put forward for exclusion of the press and public. But currently tonight, it's an open meeting, and the confidential element of it is in the papers, and it's a report author and the proper officer deciding, looking at the nature of the confidential appendix, that they should remain confidential at the present point in time.
I just find, I'm sorry, but just because I haven't had a, so are you saying, it's important that I understand, are you saying that the decision not to have some of the appendix as confidential is the decision of the cabinet member who has responsibility for that paper and the portfolio? Is that what you're saying? Who takes the decision to have confidential appendices?
Through you, Chairman. The short point, the report author who's actually sort of looking, any report author drafting a report, and one of the things they need to understand and consider is the very point which you've ably been making about, is it in the sort of public interest for part of the report or the whole report or the relevant appendices to be confidential, and if so, there's a requirement under the regulations for the header to be duly marked up. The Council's constitution and the access to information also refers to when things need to be marked up in confidence. So very much whoever it is who drafts these reports will have that responsibility. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much indeed.
No,
This
report is
Councillor Spink,
drafted
this
by...
isn't scrutiny, this is cabinet. Now,
Scrutiny wasn't allowed to look at
just,
it.
Please. I've been very agreeable with your line of questioning, but we do have more work to get through. Understand where you're coming from. If you'd like to put written questions in or something akin to that, then we can answer those and get them done. Just a moment, please. Just a moment, please.
In time to
Just a moment.
Question in.
Just a moment, please. Just a moment, please. Now let me finish. Now I'm going to let you talk once more, and then I'm going to draw a line on this, and we're going to move on, and we're going to have the recommendation from Councillor Chris Jarman. But come forward.
I'm still, and it's probably my fault, I'm still unclear who took the decision to have a confidential appendix. Now, the paper's been presented today by Councillor Jarman. Has he taken the decision? Or is it Julie Jones-Evans, Councillor Julie Jones-Evans, who's taken the decision? We are entitled to know who has taken this decision and the reasons why. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Spink. Didn't want to cut you off. What I would say is that our monitoring officer has given you the answer to that question a few moments ago. It is on the bottom. Councillor Spink, I allow you and give you good office to speak and plenty of latitude. What I'm trying to do now is to say, if you put in written questions, if you listen to what the monitoring officer has said, the monitoring officer did actually state that if you look at the bottom of the paper that has been put forward, those are the people that are responsible for what goes into that paper and what was taken out of that paper. Now, I'm going to leave it at that now. Look, I'm very tolerant with you. You realise this. Look, don't. Let's. Oh, please. You haven't got a right to overrule. You haven't got a right to overrule the chair. I'm sorry. You might think you have, but you haven't. And
Well,
you've got to
I
realise
have a right to have
if
my
you're sat
question
here and I
answered.
was sat there, I'd have the good manners to actually ask, listen, and take things away. And now that's what you've got to do. I've sat here virtually where you've been and asked where a previous administration took £17.5 million of the supermarket Asda money, and once it was in a perfectly legitimate list that we knew what was being dealt with, and then suddenly it went. Now, for many years, I've come back into this chamber and asked, and I've been given no response. Now, you might well, no, this is my point. This is my point, that sometimes things are actually dealt with in a way that needs to protect the business of the day. And the business of the day with the Asda money, I assume, because this is the sort of answer I got, was that it didn't come forward because it was dealt with under other matters, and money was dealt with out through the Isle of Wight Council for acquisitions and making sure that our Isle of Wight Council residents and taxpayers were well catered for, and if you like, keeping the cost of various services down. Now I'm going to move on, and I'll say thank you for all your interest. As you know,
Well, I think it's a disgrace.
no, it's good. Come back again, and put your letters in writing, and we'll deal with them. Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Jarman, we'll move to the recommendation, please.
We have a recommendation which I read out and it was duly seconded.
All in favour, please. Thank you. The running order's been changed slightly. So I think it's cabinet member announcements, inviting cabinet members to provide a brief update on any part of their portfolio. I'm looking around. Councillor Fuller and Councillor Bacon.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm just going to give an update on where we are on several issues and planning updates. Work on driving the recommendations from the peer review continues, and the Planning Services Improvement Steering Group, which includes internal and external stakeholders, will meet again on the 21st of November. Following this meeting, I expect to be able to share a clearer roadmap on how we are to deliver beneficial changes to planning services, and I intend to provide more detailed updates to the Corporate Scrutiny and the Policy and Scrutiny Committee, and indeed the public at large, of the progress that we've made and our action plan for moving forward. Planning enforcement. We know communities feel strongly about planning enforcement and the positive difference planning enforcement can make to an area. Planning enforcement was identified as an area to look at by the peer review group, and this view is shared by the steering group I've already mentioned. I'm pleased to say that I intend to bring a new planning enforcement strategy to a future cabinet for its consideration and adoption. It will also set out our new positive and collaborative approach to planning enforcement working in partnership with parish, town and community councils. I, along with officers, will be speaking to IWALC meeting at the end of the month to explain more about this approach. Finally, I know that how important flooding and drainage issues are to our local communities. I'm pleased to confirm that Planning Services has created a new drainage and flood risk management officer post and have successfully recruited. This gives us the internal knowledge and capacity to deal with the drainage and flooding issues in a more positive and proactive way. And I think we've already seen the benefits of this in Arreton following recent flooding events. We have also commissioned consultants to prepare a document about sustainable drainage systems, or SUDS. It is intended that this document will become a supplementary planning document that gives clear guidance on ensuring appropriate SUDS are included in all new development, from single dwellings up to large development sites. This can help reduce the amount of surface water entering the combined sewer system we have on the island. When it rains heavily, over 96% of treated water at Sandown wastewater treatment works is rainwater and does not need to be treated and takes up capacity in the pipes. This has contributed to some of the flooding events we have seen in recent times on the island. I'm hopeful that the team will be able to consult with the public on such a document in the early part of next year. If you need anything else, please let me know. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Fuller. Councillor Bacon.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to mention one issue that has been subject of a couple of press releases in the last few days, and that is the Eastern Esplanade at Ventnor, where there's been a serious breach of the sea defences. Panels, significant concrete panels have been displaced and washed away, and a significant section of the seawall has been found to have the material underneath it that was supporting it has simply disappeared and been taken out into the wider ocean. The message I really want to give is that there's a temporary closure there. Please, could people respect it? The area now is very dangerous. As I said, there are some portions of the walkway where there is nothing underneath the walkway to support it. It is going to give way at some point. Temporary barriers have been placed up for the time being. Those closures will be made more effective and secure, but the concern has been that people have been still choosing to walk along there. Strange as it may seem, it's not a right of way at all. But as I say, the concern is for people's safety, so people could respect that closure, temporary at the moment, but to be made more secure, that would be greatly appreciated, and it is for their own safety. I would like to say, while mentioning this, that we have been working very closely with the Environment Agency, who have a key role in this area in terms of the coastal defences, and they provided some very positive support. And it is, of course, the case that works are planned in Ventnor in any event. An extensive programme of works funded by the Environment Agency, and we are looking at to see how those can be brought forward so that the area, the access that is allowed, but most importantly, the coastal protection of that area and that general site in Ventnor can be maintained and supported. But as I say, the key message is please respect the closure for your own safety.
Thank you, Councillor Bacon. Councillor Love.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of quick updates. Not that anything that I ever say is quick, to be honest, but I'll try. Our public health team, I'm delighted to say that today I was involved in a strategic drug and alcohol partnership engagement workshop. And drug and alcohol issues is something very close to my heart, as I've spent much of my career working in and amongst that particular field as an advisor, and that they are working incredibly hard in addressing the issues of drugs and alcohol which face our island. And it's no secret that the island has a heightened rate of drug and alcohol use and deaths relating to that. And they'll be bringing forward a report in due course for all councillors to be able to look at, consider and review. And they're doing this work as part of their annual review for the island. So I just wanted to mention that. I also needed to say that Councillor Andre and myself attended a conference in Manchester, along with our lovely Director of Adult Social Care and Simon Holmes, and his name escapes me, from Education.
It was my director of children's social care, who happens to be the current president of the Association of Directors of Children's Services, Steve Crocker.
There you go. Anyway, but we still didn't say his name.
Steve Crocker.
Steve Crocker, there we go. So, sorry, just slipped my, and we attended that in Manchester. I'm pleased to say that the island is actually quite on course in terms of its thinking and its attitude towards the development of adult social care and, of course, children's care, which Councillor Andre might wish to say a little bit more about. I think it's really important to note that we all share at this moment in time concerns about what comes forward from government in terms of funding. It's right across the board. There's no doubt that a lot of councils need to have additional funding because of the economic impacts and because of the war in Ukraine and the impacts of that. And so there's no doubt that we are looking forward to receiving some kind of hope and aspiration within the budget and, of course, the local government review. So without which we will be in a very difficult position, and I think it's just important to note that now. But I know that my staff are working really, really hard to deal with the winter pressures as well. And again, we're still waiting for an announcement from government about how much of the 500 million we are or are not going to receive, and there are some complexities around that. It does seem that the funds which Boris Johnson announced earlier this year may well be delayed further, according to the press, which is not helpful when you're trying to plan for a service which costs millions of pounds and can't wait for money to come down. It has to progress. So, but again, a lot of fantastic staff there in Wightcare services, in the NHS, who are working particularly hard. We're so grateful to you, and all of our volunteer carers and our own carers. Thank you to all of you, and I think it's important to recognise that. Thank you. Was that short? I told you I could talk forever.
Yeah, very short. Thank you very much indeed. I just want to mention, you mentioned about a presentation to members. Is there any way that you can extend that out to town and parish members as well? Because let's face it, we're all in this together, and it would be take this to one side, Councillor, but it might be something that we can discuss how we or how you and your team can actually bring some things forward that actually town and parish members could come into the chamber here and listen firsthand to what the situation is as regards our service delivery and our other stakeholders. And I think that might be reasonably advisable. It's only my suggestion. I haven't spoken with the chief exec yet, but no doubt we will speak about these things. But we really want presentations. We want them council wide. We don't want small groups. What we want are to make sure that when we put something on, it should be open to other members across the chamber. What we don't want to do is have resource hungry smaller groups meeting when we can actually encompass it in one area. Paul, if you're going to be quick.
Very, very quick, Chairman. I had exactly the same conversation with Ollie Bolter earlier on about rolling out planning training. We're starting to really look at planning training now for members, and that's all members of this council. But one of the things I said is if we're doing that training for all members of the Isle of Wight Council, let's see if we can roll it out in some way, shape or form. Let's record that training. Let's be proactive in working with our town and parish councils. I think they are the key to some of the service providers on the island. So I would welcome what you're saying, Chairman.
Absolutely. Carl, you want to come back in just briefly?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yeah, just to come back to say that this, the Strategic Drug and Alcohol Partnership Engagement is a new partnership that's been put together. It's embryonic just at this point. So I think what we need to do is get the grounding for that together, let them build their report, and then I don't see any problem with sharing that in the usual way across the partnership. I don't think there'd be anything in there of any surprise. You know, I came to the island long ago, 1992. as a part of trying to address those kind of social impact issues from drugs and alcohol and sexual health and all sorts of other things. But essentially, there's no reason why that information can't be shared unless there is something which is specific to which identifies individuals, and I don't think that would be the case. So I don't know when that would be brought forward. I'm hoping that that could be brought forward. Perhaps it will probably be in the early part of the new financial year, I think, to be honest, at this point.
Thank you. Right. Councillor Debbie Arndell.
Thank you, Chair. It's my turn now. I think Councillor Love's somewhat stolen my thunder, but yes, no, that's fine. We both did attend the national conference for both adult social care and children's services last week. There was sessions were pretty much back to back. It was very intense. But I did get a lot from the conference, especially in terms of SEND, which is very high on the agenda at the moment, and ADHD and autism and those things. It was very useful to be able to network, especially with local government association colleagues. And there was a lot of sharing of best practice, and I've already picked up on some action points that I've been discussing with my team. So very, very useful. I also attended a special Come Dine With Us Halloween party that was organised for our looked after children, and it was an absolutely wonderful affair with our children's social workers there. There were elected members there, there were officers there, and Steve Crocker was there as well. And it was just a really, really wonderful event. Also on the line of participation, we had some Have Your Say Week activities, which is an opportunity for our foster and adoption families to come and talk to us in a sort of relaxed environment where the children do fun activities. And the particular one I attended was at the Island Riding Centre, where the children had the opportunity to ride and grooming ponies, which was absolutely wonderful. In fact, one of the ponies, they did a wonderful job of plaiting its mane, and it was absolutely beautiful. Another thing I think I will finish on is some very good news. Is I had an update a week ago on our new build school, the Yarmouth School on the freshwater site. It's very rare in these days that I think a project can actually said to be ahead of schedule, but we have an incredible team for the Isle of Wight Council pulling all this together. So the project is currently 6 to 8 weeks ahead of the programme, and the building is planned to be handed over on the 9th of December, which will allow for a move into the new building over the Christmas holiday period, and the children will return to their brand new school on the 3rd of January 2023, and a letter has been sent out to parents with all the details for that, which I think those that know me know that I am an absolute advocate that the environment in which we teach our children is incredibly important, and our island children deserve fantastic environment, and that's what we're giving them with this new school. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Andre. Councillor Jordan.
Thank you, Ian. Just a quick update on the speed review, on the basis that I continue to get requests for 20-mile-an-hour speed limit reductions across the island in towns and villages. The update is that we are very close to the end of the data gathering, and that will, I think what's happened with some town and parish councils, they've misunderstood that the end of the data gathering would have been the start of interventions. In fact, it's the start of collation of the data into a meaningful and sensible report that will come back to Cabinet, but not until next year, Chair. Around March or April is the current target date. But so I'm just making that point that we won't and can't intervene in the meantime on speed reductions until the speed review is complete and the report in and Cabinet considers it. And there will be, I'm sure, priorities for us to consider for intervention. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Jordan. Just looking around. Right, so going to move on then to the forward plan. Consideration of the forward plan. If you can't find it, it's on pages 389 to 398. Just thought I'd mention the page numbers so you can delve through and find them. Anything of any consequence? Any concern? I see nothing myself. I've been through it twice. My own copy. So. Okay. So we're happy with the forward plan. I'm going to move on straight away to members' question time. There are none. Right. In that case, I'm going to say thank you very much. Before I close the meeting, I want to say welcome to our Chief Exec, who's become a Chief Exec since our last meeting. So I'm going to move on and say thank you and leave it at that. And good night. Safe journey home. Meeting closed.